You're listening to a Faith Matters podcast. So this week we actually had one of our guys, Bevan Marquand, speak at Surfside Church, and as part of what he shared with us on Sunday, he had this analogy, and it was so good, like really good. And I just sat with it for a couple of days, and when I ended up doing my blog this week, it's based on the analogy that he gave us there. So I'm going to read you my version of it, and I hope, even if you take nothing else from this section of our time together today, I reckon this analogy is top notch. A teacher asked his students, if you carried a cup of coffee and someone bumped into you, why did you spill the coffee? The students all answered, because someone bumped into me. The teacher disagreed. No, it was because you had coffee in your cup. If you had carried water, it would have been water that spilled. Then he said something profound. Whenever life shakes you, whatever you are carrying will spill out. If you are carrying fear, jealousy, anger, greed, that is what will spill out. If you are carrying love, compassion, kindness, empathy, that is what will spill out. So each and every day you should pause and think to yourself, what am I carrying in my cup? Wow, that is so good. I mean, we all know that when pressure comes on, that's when somebody's true self will come out. But just that idea of someone bumping into you, what's going to spill out? Well, you are listening to Faith Matters, and this afternoon we are talking about being thankful. We're talking about cherishing each other. We are talking about how we can show other people that they have meaning in our world. And a comment that Umberto made before, he was talking something about, if you've got a roof over your head and certain things, you're really in the top percentage of people in the world as far as their material possessions, as far as their wealth goes. And so here we are in a place where it's very easy to get disgruntled about something that's not working out for us. But as he was saying that, I was reminded of last year I was in Ireland at the Famine Museum, of course, the Irish famine, and around about they had different signs with different facts and information on it. But there was this particular sign, a couple of them, that I looked up when Umberto was talking before, and this one said, today's world, if you can walk up to your fridge and find food in it, you have clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and a bed to sleep on. So that's food with a fridge, clothes, roof over your head, and a bed. Then you are richer than 75% of the world's population. So that actually puts a statistical figure to it, rather than just saying, you're really well off. If you have those things, then you're in the top 75%. And then when I was looking for it, I just came across this other sign I'd taken a photo of there. If your bank account, that's not good England. Okay, if you have a bank account, a bit of money and change in your purse, then you are part of the 8% that is considered well off. So there you go, bank account. Do you have that? A bit of money and change in your purse, then you are part of the 8%. That is pretty out there when we consider having a bank account fairly standard, and yet actually when you look at it at a world level, we are so blessed. So we can be looking for things. I really liked that song that talked about I'm thanking God for today, something that we've all got. It doesn't have to be fancy, but we can look for things to be grateful for. So coming back round to this analogy that I was talking about before of this teacher who asked his students, when someone bumped you, why did coffee spill out your cup? And they're like, well, because someone bumped me. It's like, no, because there was coffee in your cup. If there had been water in your cup, water would have spilled out. And that to me is just phenomenal. That is so cool. But how often when life shakes us and we burst out with something, and we point the finger and we're like, but they made me do it. It's their fault. Very rarely do we look at what we were carrying in our cup. And I just loved that reflection, that turning and looking for opportunity to blame others is not the most helpful direction to go when something happens. It's to look at what's in our cup. Do you listen to what comes out of your mouth? There is a verse that says, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so that, again, is that same idea of what is on our inside is what is going to come out. Actually, this week, I was mistaken for a scammer. I needed to pay a bill, and when I looked at the invoice, it was actually missing one of the numbers from the bank account number. So I had to contact this person and say, excuse me, there is a number missing. This is what number I have, but I need the extra number so that I can make sure it goes to you. Well, I mean, how often do you contact people about random strangers about bank account numbers? Straight away, he decided that I was a scammer. And he treated me as such. And oh my gosh, the language that came out of his mouth was quite spectacular. And fortunately, we were just texting, so I had to read it, but I didn't have to hear it, which I was thankful for. But eventually, I managed to convince him that I was not a scammer. And he's like, sorry, my bad, and then sent me through the bank account number. Yet, in the midst of all that, what was coming out of his mouth was quite telling. And I just thought to myself, I probably wouldn't hang out with this guy a lot, because what flows out of him in this moment of pressure was quite telling about the way that he sees the world. And I just went, we don't probably have a great deal in common. I mean, I could certainly be an acquaintance, and I could certainly have small talk conversation, but when it comes to sharing those deeper things, I was thinking, probably not actually with this guy. But that's what happens when we have those moments where something inside us gets exposed. For him, that would have been normal conversation. He actually thought I was one of his friends, just joking around with him for a period of that time, so he was trying to figure out who I was. And I was just like, my gosh, you speak like this with your friends. So sometimes stuff pulls out of us, and to us it seems completely normal, but to other people listening in who don't speak the way that we speak, it can be quite, well, in the sense like this guy who was being a bit nasty and trying to shoo me away. It can be a bit confronting. But equally, I was thinking before when Umberto and Jax were talking about, walking down the road holding the hand of your spouse, and people do notice that, especially when it's an older couple. You don't necessarily expect an older couple to be holding hands anymore, because they're kind of, they've done life together, they know each other inside out, and they just kind of get on with life. And yet when you see an older couple walking along holding hands, you often have younger people stop and go, oh, isn't that so sweet? When I get to be that age, I would love to be part of an older couple who are walking along holding hands. And it's something kind of that we aspire to, and yet in the day-to-day of just doing life, we don't tend to go there. And it is something that we cultivate in our relationship of how do we interact with each other, how do we represent, how do we connect, how do we represent that to the world as we're out and about? Do we choose to stay close? Do we choose to hold hands? Do we choose to dress the same? Some people might choose to do that this time of the year. So with that idea of self-reflection of what is on our inside being what comes out, and you might have an outburst, and like that other guy, I think it was normal for him and his friend group to just talk that way, but sometimes you have something burst out in a moment of pressure and you're actually quite embarrassed by it, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about that, I really didn't mean for that to come out. And I really like something that Jax has said a few times lately, and that was, she's talking about a hope chest or a glory box or whatever they are called, that you kind of gather treasures in, and it might be that you gather them before you get married, or even just before you've moved out of home, so that when you move out of home or you get married, you have these treasures which now you can use to set up your own space. And what she was saying about that is that all you have to pull out of a hope chest is what you've put into it. So if you didn't put anything in, there's actually nothing to draw on. And I think it's a similar sense with this overflow of what comes out of you when you get bumped or when you get squeezed. What have you been feeding yourself with? What sort of conversation is your norm? What sort of words do you use? What sort of things do you watch? What you watch on the TV or on the internet shapes you. It shapes your humour. It shapes your attention span. It shapes your outlook on life. It shapes a number of aspects of who you are. And so if something comes out of you in that moment and you're just like, oh, where did that come from? Well, then that's a moment to think, okay, what have I been taking in? What have I been watching? What have I been listening to? What have I been laughing at? What have I been thinking of in my private thoughts? What am I imagining? And those sorts of things will come out. And if you think about it and go, actually, I haven't been feeding myself with the best of attitudes, really. I think that's where the analogy of the cup comes in, and it's really helpful. Because if you think of it as, oh, I'm carrying all that and it's baggage and it's heavy and oh my gosh, it's just me and oh, I don't know what I can do about it, well, then you kind of leave it be and don't respond. But if you go, hang on, what's in my cup? I had coffee in my cup, but what I really wanted was water, or I really wanted a hot chocolate. You know what you can do? You can actually pour out the coffee and you can put something new into your cup. So what would you do in a situation with a cup if you were wanting to put something different into it? So you'd pour out the old, you would probably rinse it, give it a bit of a clean, and you'd put in something new. So that's what we can do when we are thinking, oh, something came out that I wasn't super happy about. You can think, okay, what's in my cup? And maybe you actually choose to get rid of that. Maybe it is something like an offence. Maybe it is something like a lie that you've been carrying around and you just suddenly realise, actually, that's not true. You can actually take that out. You don't need to be carrying that anymore. It might be where we're feeling guilty, and maybe we could take that out by actually saying sorry for that thing. Maybe it is where we're looking at someone suspiciously and we think, oh, I don't know about that person. Maybe we could have a conversation with them and find out what's really going on, or maybe we could give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe where we're carrying fear, maybe we could actually look at that thing and go, hang on, is this a fear which can be irrational, or is it actually a danger? And if it's a danger, now you can look at it and think, okay, how could I deal with that? And you can actually put steps in place. So no longer does it come across as scary. Now it's something that we can consider and work towards, perhaps. Maybe we're carrying shame. Maybe we could take time to heal and restore that place, that thing that we've been carrying and trying to hide. Being honest with where we're at. And so all of these sorts of things are things that we can do when we're looking to perhaps take things out of our cup or take things out of our hope chest or our glory box that we have been stashing away. If we're wanting to reach into that treasure chest and grab something out that's good, we need to be putting good things into it. So first of all, we'll take those things out, and then we can put what we want in there with intention. We can be aware of what we're listening to and aware of the sorts of conversations that we're having. Are we a part of a conversation that disses other people and makes fun of others, and then we spend our time freaking out because we think our friend group are laughing behind our backs? Well, of course that's what we're going to be imagining that they're going to do, because that's what we've been doing with them. So how do we change what we do, so that we are putting treasures into our box, or we're putting something into our cup that we actually want to drink from, and not some other flavour that is unpleasant to our taste. We've been talking about what is in your cup. What is it that when someone bumps into you, what spills out? And of course, we've been talking a lot about Thanksgiving, because it happens to still be Thanksgiving in the US right now. I just think it's a positive, when the opportunity comes up to think about being grateful and being thankful, it's always a good opportunity to take that moment and consider what we have to be thankful for. It always will give us a lift when we realise that even in a really hard time, there is something there. Whether it's somebody that stands alongside us, whether it is just the fact that we got to enjoy a beautiful cup of tea, whether it is a little flower that we see growing out the sidewalk against all odds. We can find things to be thankful for even in the hardest times. You've been listening to a Faith Matters podcast. If you have questions, email us on faithmatters98.1fm@gmail.com.